prediction. And it's very interesting that some of these, each year they seem to get a lot of things right. But the interesting thing is they pull in a lot of sometimes biblical imagery. There was a few years ago where, which is typical with something that, excuse me, might be a cult. The issue cover was reversed. I think it was 2019. And so you had to look at it in a mirror, reverse the issue. But one of the things there, they had, I think it was Xi, and they had Prince Charles, they had Donald Trump, and they also had the four horsemen of the apocalypse. There was another time where the issue, I think this is back about 2016 or 2017, where they had tarot cards made up that were predicting certain things, war, immigration, that sort of thing. And then they also had something with regard to Donald Trump. This year, they have two covers that they came out. One is The World Ahead in 2024. And at the top, they have pictures of Putin and Zelensky. In the middle of that, they have an hourglass where the sands in the hourglass are getting down. In the middle, they have a ballot box, which means that 2024 is a year of big elections. They also have interesting imagery in the middle right. They have a picture of the stock market and financial markets, and they're all going down pretty dramatically. Then on the left side of that, they have brains wired into the computer. And so again, when we see this, we know that what they're doing is they're sort of predicting the way things are going to go, the way things are happening. They also have Biden and Xi down at the bottom. They also have something on electric cars, electric vehicles. And then with Biden, on the side of Biden, they have windmills, and they also have a hurricane. And also at the top, they have the sequence of the sun and moon that would go through an eclipse. That's because there's a big eclipse this summer in the United States that's going to go from, I believe, the southwest to the northeast. It's actually going to come through Ohio, and it's going to make an X where we had a eclipse. The totality line went from northwest to southeast in 2017. So there's a lot of things that are happening. There's going to be some big meetings in New York in the fall. September 22nd, 23 will be the I'm trying to remember the plan for the future meeting for the UN, and what they're going to do is they're just bringing in and incorporating all of their climate change, sustainable development goals. There's also going to be a COP28 meeting in Dubai in a few weeks. So you might want to be paying attention to that. So that's one. So one cover they have is The World Ahead 2024 with a lot of symbols on it, including the eclipse. The other one that's more for their mainstream publication, I think you have to be a subscriber to get the World Ahead 2024 issue. But if you're the regular issue, is the World Ahead 2024, and it's the world with a silhouette of Donald Trump. And in there, they say that the most severe threat to the world is Donald Trump and supporters of Donald Trump. Now, we can have an argument about whether you want to vote for Trump or not. That's fine. That's not, I don't think that's the issue we want to talk about tonight. I mean, there's some things I'm concerned about. There was a court case this week in Colorado. They were trying to get Trump disqualified under the 14th Amendment because he had engaged in an insurrection back in January of 2021. The court ruled that he did engage in an insurrection, but the court also ruled that it's up to the voters to decide whether he's going to be on the ballot. And this is what some of the states are doing. There's cases filed in Minnesota, I think one up in New England somewhere, maybe Maine, Colorado, and one other state. I think I said Minnesota. What they're going to do in a lot of cases is they're going to let him stay on the ballot And then after the election, they'll come in and decide whether he engaged in an insurrection and therefore should be disqualified from serving in office. I think you also need to go to Mike Johnson. He's the new Speaker of the House. Go to his account if you're interested in learning about what happened back in January 2021. He's released and is making available to the public about 40,000 hours of video that for some reason the committee that was investigating this when the Democrats controlled the House of Representatives never saw fit to release to the American public. But now that's been released and a lot of people are going through it. And I must admit let's just say the video does not fit the narrative that we've had shoved down our throats for the last few years. And this is what's going to happen. This whole narrative thing is going to be a big issue going forward. This year with the election, we're going to have a tremendous amount of disinformation and that sort of thing. I was going to play for you a video. If you watch my update next Sunday, I'm pretty sure I'll be back to do it next Sunday. I'm going to play a video of Neom, and it's very interesting. Now, Neom is the city that's located along the Red Sea, near the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula. It's across the Red Sea from there. In the Red Sea there, by the way, there are two islands there, and it's called the Tiran Islands, Tiran. And the Tiran Islands are pretty significant geopolitically. Back in 1967, Egypt had blockaded Israel access to the Red Sea. When the Six-Day War in 1967 was over, Israel got the agreement of Egypt that would never happen again. That was very important to Israel because that's where they get some of their trade and oil through the Red Sea coming to the port of Eilat in southern Israel. So those Straits of Tiran, those are in the process, and I don't know the exact status. They were to be transferred back to Saudi Arabia, who really owned them. Egypt had taken control of them many decades ago, but they're to be given back to Saudi Arabia, and there's going to be a bridge built from Neom across to the islands there and then over to the Sinai Peninsula. And Neom itself is a state, and it goes all the way up to southern Jordan, the border of southern Jordan. But the significant feature of the Saudi Arabia development there, and the Crown Prince is putting $500 billion into this, and they're getting international investors. Saudi Arabia has one of the major international financial elite conferences. Theirs is called the Financial Investment Initiative Institute. They had their 7th conference just a couple weeks ago. I would highly recommend that you go and find that on YouTube and watch the interview, particularly with Jared Kushner. Kushner talked about, and this was after the October 7th attack in southern Israel by Hamas. Kushner talked about the fact we need to revive the Abraham Accords because this is the way forward on peace. Now, I think that they are going to come back. Saudi Arabia did block some things at an organization of Islamic countries that took place in Riyadh last week. They had some very anti-Israel things that they were putting in place, but Saudi Arabia blocked that, along with the United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Bahrain, other countries that had entered into the Abraham Accords with Israel. So I think the significance of the Abraham Accords is not going to go away. There was rumors before the UN meeting back in September when Mohammed bin Salman was interviewed by Fox News by Bret Baier, an English language interview. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen it. And in that interview, Bret Baier asked him, he said, well, I hear that everything is on hold with the Abraham Accords. And Mohammed bin Salman said, no way, they're still going forward. So pay attention to those, because I think there is a connection as you look at the way they're coming together. I do think that there is a significant connection to the nations identified in Psalm 83, which I think, but it talks about the fact that they conspire together against Israel. So I told some friends when I was in Israel that I would be very careful with the Abraham Accords because I saw them as a trap. So we can argue about whether Psalm 83 is a war, whether it's just, I think at a minimum, it shows a permanent condition that will exist where the enemies of Israel will conspire against them. And remember, countries, Islamic countries, and all those places listed in Psalm 83 are Islamic Islamic areas, by the way, and there are also 10 regions listed there that may or may not be significant, but they conspire together against Israel. And, Muslims will make it's called a hudna. They will make a peace agreement when they're weak militarily. And then when they get strong, they will break it. So I personally think that the Abraham Accords are ultimately a trap. But I don't think Jared Kushner believes that. But that's going to, I think, come about and be something significant as we go forward. Now, with regard to the Hamas attacks on October 7th and what's going on, Israel's been doing pretty well in their invasion of Gaza. They've split Gaza in two. They're going in deep on the northern Gaza hospital that they said was the centralized command of Hamas. And the other thing you're going to see coming out of this war is just tremendous amounts of propaganda. It's unlike anything that I've ever seen. The foreign minister of Israel, I believe his name is Cohen, there's an article in today's Jerusalem Post that says that Israel has to get this done in about 3 weeks or they're going to lose world opinion. Now, I think they've already lost world opinion. They had a little bit of a grace period, but the reaction has been so strong and the rise in anti-Semitism has been so severe that I just don't think Israel has world opinion behind them now. I personally think that Prime Minister Netanyahu's career will be over at some point. There's a lot of concern about within Israel, did Israel let it happen? Were there people that was it an inside job to some extent? I think it's clear that it was a very well-planned operation by Hamas. By the way, in my update that I did at Fellowship Bible Chapel today, which is up on our Rumble channel at Real FBC and also on our Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube channel, I did play about a 12-minute video that the Washington Post put up analyzing what it was that Hamas, with assistance from Iran, and I personally think, as I've researched it, I think there was cyber attack assistance given to Hamas by Iran and Russia, that they gave them the capabilities to do things that a lot of people didn't think that Hamas had. But Hamas have been very clever. They've been gathering intel for a couple of years. They had stayed relatively quiet last year when there were rockets being launched into Israel. Those were launched by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, another terror group that exists in Gaza. I think there are about 6 others in addition to that. But the two main ones, Hamas is certainly the largest, maybe having 40,000 fighters. Palestinian Islamic Jihad, maybe 5,000 fighters. There is, Palestinian Islamic Jihad launched the rockets a year ago. And I think while that was happening, there was a lot of intel being gathered. It's clear also, I think, despite their indications to the contrary, there's an interesting graphic that's floating around the internet right now, and it's Khamenei overlooking the ocean with a sea of people carrying Palestinian flags. And across the water in the distance is the Dome of the Rock. The sea is parting. So the imagery, the Khomeini is, we are parting the Red Sea so we can all march to Al-Quds, to Jerusalem. Erdogan has come out. He gave a speech just today in Turkey. This is, I think, is important for the alignment of nations that are coming together in the beginnings of an Ezekiel 38 coalition. Russia, for example, has recently been active in Libya, getting some bases set up. I think that's significant. Those are two players in the coalition. Turkey and Iran are also players in the coalition. Turkey has, since the October 7th attacks, Turkey is really, the rhetoric coming out of Turkey is about as extreme as anything coming out of Tehran. Erdogan announced today that Israel will soon be finished. He also announced, and this sort of indicates that this is much bigger than just Israel with regard to Hamas. He said on October 8th in a speech to about 1.5 million people in Istanbul that the cross would soon fall to the Islamic crescent. So if you look at some of my updates, I may have had the map in my update today, this map that Erdogan used in one of his mouthpiece newspapers back in December of 2017. That's probably about as good as an Ezekiel 38, 39 map as I've seen anybody put up. Now, I think it includes some of the southern countries that aren't really like Saudi Arabia, that aren't really involved in Ezekiel 38, but it's pretty good. So we have Turkey coming out, and we also have Iran. Iran is publishing a lot of things, but the thing that's concerning is the almost the inside job that's being undertaken by the Biden administration with regard to Iran. They've come out and they act like, well, we support Israel and everything, but if you remember a couple of months ago, the Biden administration had said they were going to allow some money that had been frozen in accounts in Qatar to be released to Tehran. But they were able to walk that back. It was $6 billion. Well, now they've released some sanctions, and it looks like there's going to be about $10 billion that's transferred to Iran, none of which is good. I mean, Iran says we'll only use it for humanitarian purposes. And if you believe that, then I've got something else to tell you. So we're seeing the nations align. By the way, just to get back to my NEOM thing that I was talking about a minute ago, in NEOM, Mohammed bin Salman is building this 100-mile long city called the Line. It's going to be 1,500 feet on each side with people living in between. And it's not going to be, by the way, it's not going to be a 15-minute city like we hear so many people talking about from the World Economic Forum. It's actually going to be like an 8-minute city. Everything that you need will be within an 8-minute walk of where you live. And it has these characteristics that it looks very much like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So I know the issue of this Babylon thing is controversial. Again, I sort of take an open attitude towards that. I would say that NEOM is on my short list. It's actually being built. My understanding is that at least the initial phases, about 20% of it is already built or finished. So they're building it. They're doing this down in the desert. I do have, as I was researching it, and again, I'll play the video when I have an opportunity to do so. There was a video of the architects that were talking about NEOM, and it's pretty spectacular. I mean, it really is. Now, I don't know if you want to live in a giant hallway that's 100 miles long, but people seem to like to live in cities, or they're trying to force us into cities, and they're going to make this one very attractive. So the architect, Peter Cook, who's one of the designers, he said, if this thing works, this is the new Babylon. He said that in a quote in the video that was put up recently. So back to the Iranian thing. So Antony Blinken, he issued a memo on November 13th. Mark Levin got a hold of it. You can find copies of it at Mark Levin's Twitter account or at Mark Levin's or on Blaze Media. And it's about what's going on in the Middle East. It's from Anthony Blinken to the people at the State Department. And in there, he talks about, I went to the Middle East. I've been doing all this shuttle diplomacy. I've been going here and there. But I think this is the critical paragraph in that memo that's now been made public. So he says this because I think this is where the Biden administration really wants to go. I mean, this is what Obama wanted. It's what Obama still wants. And that's a Palestinian state. So here's what Blinken's memo says. As I said in private and in public, we believe Palestinian people's voices and aspirations must be at the center of the post-crisis governance in Gaza. We believe in Palestinian-led governance of Gaza, with Gaza unified with the West Bank. Gaza's reconstruction must be supported with a sustained mechanism. And if you go back and look at Trump's vision for peace that was released in January of 2020, the day, by the way, that the Charlie Vector thing became a crisis, Trump's vision for peace, and I know there's some people who disagree with this, it envisioned a Palestinian state. It envisioned a connection between Gaza and the West Bank. It envisioned also some additional areas in the Negev along the Egyptian-Israeli border being given over for industrial and agricultural zones to Gaza. As I'm looking at this, one of the things that I've really kind of been disturbed about the Hamas thing is the rise in anti-Semitism that I see. People that I've followed on Twitter that I think do good jobs on other issues have just come out and say, all the Jews in Israel are fake. Those aren't real Jews. There's nothing biblical about this. And you see this, there's been a real rise in this. There's a controversy going on between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. And she's made I'll just be honest with you, some things that I find very troubling. For example, she did say in a video interview, can't remember who it was with, she said, well, you know, my grandfather told me that Muslims can only really live in the Muslim quarter in Jerusalem. And that's just ignorant. There's nothing true about that. And I don't understand why somebody like Candace Owens would not know that that's not true. And she said, well, I learned this while I was walking around Jerusalem with my grandfather. I think that's what she said. I could be misquoting her. But that's problematic. So this push, though, the rise in anti-Semitism and the push for a two-state solution is coming back. Now, the Saudi Crown Prince has proposed through some of his channels over the last year or two what's referred to in an article in Al Arabiya from June of 2022, and then also in the Wall Street Journal, called the Jordanian option, the Hashemite Kingdom of Palestine, which really takes the Trump plan and just makes a connection between the West Bank and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. That's kind of interesting. Now, I don't know where that's going, but a lot of people think that the Saudi Crown Prince is going to push this. He's going to be part of the Abraham Accords. He's also going to push to change control of the Temple Mount. But this Palestinian issue is really in a situation where it seems to be almost irresolvable on the part of Israel. Caroline Glick, and I would highly recommend that you go to the JNS, that's capital J, capital N as in Nancy, S, JNS video channel, and I would follow and subscribe to Caroline's videos. But when you're doing that, you can also follow and subscribe to Hope for Our Times YouTube channel and also Fellowship Bible Chapel's YouTube channel. But Caroline's really, I've always respected Caroline. I've been following her for a number of years. I'm sure there are things we disagree on. I just haven't really found them yet. But she has a very good article in this November 19th today at jns.org. Just click on the opinion tab and you'll get Caroline's article. It's called what do the Palestinians want? Westerners assume that the Palestinians seek a future of prosperity and freedom and peace because that is what they aspire to preserve for themselves. But this isn't the case. She goes through, and one of the interesting parts about this is she looks at an opinion poll that Bizrite University near Ramallah had published, a survey of Palestinian opinion that was looking at what do they think. Joe Biden and his advisors, like Anthony Blinken, had said, Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. It does not stand for the dignity of Palestinians. But do the facts on the ground really stack up with what Joe Biden is saying? And Caroline notes in her article, on Thursday, Bizrite University near Ramallah published a survey of Palestinian opinion that responded to this central Western claim, what I just said Joe Biden said. Their answer was as nuanced as a brick. Researchers from Bizrite gathered the data through face-to-face interviews with thousands of Palestinians throughout Judea and Samaria and at 3 points in southern Gaza. They also spoke to residents of southern Gaza and with evacuees from the combat zones in northern Gaza. Some 75% of Palestinians support the Hamas-led slaughter of October 7th. Factor that. So Anthony Blinken is running, Blinken is running around saying that he wants to make a Palestinian state in the West Bank. 75% of the Palestinians in that area support what Hamas did. And when I was there and traveling some in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, also really known as biblical Judea and Samaria, we did run into a number of people, just really everyday business owners and that type of thing, that were clearly Hamas supporters. They hated Mahmoud Abbas. They called him Abu Mazen. So Caroline continues in her article today, if Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinians, it's hard to understand who represents them. 76% of Palestinians support Hamas. 88% of Palestinians in Judea and Samaria support Hamas. And 60% of Gaza residents support Hamas. That's kind of interesting. You live close to Hamas, I guess you have less support. The Palestinian Authority, that's run by Mahmoud Abbas, he's currently serving, I believe, the 14th or 15th year of a four-year term he was elected back in about 2003. They have the support of 10% of the Palestinians. The only groups that says that enjoy more support than Hamas are the terror groups that have no aspiration to do anything other than kill Jews. Iran's Islamic Jihad, the Palestinians' authorities, Fatah's Al-Aqsa brigades, and Hamas's terror cells all enjoy even higher levels of support than Hamas itself. Palestinians believe that there is no credible reason for anyone to support Israel. To the extent that Israel is supported by Western nations, the Palestinians attribute it to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jewish power and money. That sounds a lot of what I'm seeing among right-wing conservatives here in the United States. People are really piling on Israel, and I don't think that it's biblical. So I would highly recommend that you get this article that Caroline wrote and published at JNS today. Here's the last two paragraphs that I'll share with you. Westerners assume that the Palestinians seek a future of prosperity and freedom and peace because that is what they aspire to preserve for themselves. But this isn't the case, at least not in the way that Westerners think. The Palestinians want a better life but their conception of a better life is a life of jihad, of killing infidels. What motivates them is not prosperity, but genocide. And really, that's the definition of genocide, not the, I don't know how many thousands of Gazans have been killed. There's still way over 2 million of them. So if Israel's been engaged in genocide all these years, they're pretty ineffective at it. She says, what motivates them is not prosperity, but genocide, and this is why their hope needs to be extinguished. She concludes with this: Israel's took the measure of the Palestinians on October 7th, and opinions have shifted sharply towards positions that the Israeli right has advocated on behalf of for more than a generation. The world as a whole, and by the way, there is about 70% support in Israel for what's going on. The world as a whole would do well to take their measure as well. Actions don't lie, and neither do the data. The Palestinians are a society unified by their common goal of annihilating Israel. This is who they are. That is what they want. And I think, so somehow this is going, I think, to change, but I don't know how it is. I personally think that the prophecies of Obadiah and also some of the things that are in Ezekiel chapter 35 apply to the people who identify themselves as Palestinians, because they've taken control of the mountains of Israel and they say, you know, we're in charge, and they become very haughty and proud. So let me just say this. I'll have some other things when I get back. But you've heard this chant in these pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel marches. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from the Detroit area, says, well, that's just an aspirational claim. That's just something that they want freedom. That's not what that means. That means to annihilate and wipe out Israel. It's interesting, too, that, by the way, as I was researching some things today, I came across some pretty solid evidence that prior to the October 7th attack, that large pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel demonstrations have been planned for places like New York to happen on October 8th. Those were planned before the attacks on October 7th. But let me just put this in biblical perspective, because God is jealous for Zion. I know there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, you know, Israel has nothing to do with anything in the future. I reject that totally. In Zechariah, I'm going to read you a few passages because I think this puts from the river to the sea will be dealt with by Jesus when he returns. That notion. In fact, Jesus has a much different notion, but God is jealous for Zion. It says in Zechariah chapter 8, again, the word of the Lord of the host came, saying, thus says the Lord of hosts, I am zealous for Zion with great zeal. With great fervor, I am zealous for her. Verse 3, thus says the Lord, I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. That's where the Lord is returning. Then in Zechariah chapter 9, we have this prophecy that we're familiar with, but there's also another one that I think sometimes we gloss over just a little bit, but I think it's a direct response to this chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So in Zechariah 9, verse 9, it says this, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. And then verse 10, I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim. That was the northern king. That's a name that's referenced to the northern kingdom. And the horse from Jerusalem, the battle bow shall be cut off. He shall speak peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. And it also says that in Psalm 72, he shall have dominion also from sea to sea, Psalm 72, verse 8, and from the river to the ends of the earth. So that's what we're looking for. That's where the hope is, that the Lord is going to return and he's going to clean up this mess. I thought about when I was Tom asked me to cover for him tonight. And by the way, here they had a great conference up at Rock Harbor Church, and I think you can still sign up and get the recordings of that. Proceeds are going to help people in Israel at this time, and Israel's in pretty bad shape. 200,000 people have been forced to leave your homes. Now, that's 200,000 people out of a country of 9 million. They're taking over hotels. They're down at the Dead Sea. They're in Jerusalem. That's a lot of people to move in a very short period of time in a country that size. It's going to have dramatic economic impact. So I just think we need to focus on that. By the way, let me just say one more thing. There is a theory running around that Israel has made up this attack so they could go into Gaza and get Gaza's gas and oil. And you'll hear people like Mike Adams on the Health Ranger and other people saying, "Oh, Israel, they're trying to steal Gaza. Gaza has trillions of dollars in gas worth of gas, and Israel's trying to steal it." I don't see any evidence of that. It's been there for a while, but I researched it. I came up with like 3 reports that all said the same thing. I talked about it this morning. Gaza has about 1.4 trillion cubic feet of gas. And so so somebody like Mike Adams says, 1.4 trillion cubic feet. Well, that's trillions of dollars worth of gas. And it's just nonsense. A trillion cubic feet of gas is on the market today. And I think this may be net of the cost of getting it out of the ground or from under the ocean where the gas is off of Gaza and off of Israel, is about $3 billion. So it's not trillions of dollars. So I have trouble, and look, you can correct me, that's fine. I've been wrong before. And by the way, 1.4 trillion cubic feet of gas would be worth about $4.5 billion. So you're going to tell me that for $4.5 billion in annual revenue, Israel's going to engage in a war with Gaza, and the cost of this war are going to easily, with reconstruction costs and everything, are going to be way above $100 billion to deal with this problem. So you're telling me that Israel did a $100 billion war disrupting, and I don't even think that includes the economic costs of displacing 200,000 people internally within Israel. I'm not buying it. As I said this morning, even the elites, even the World Economic Forum and the elites of the world have calculators and accountants, and I just don't think it makes any economic sense. Now, I could be very wrong, but I just don't see it happening. By the way, the gas that Gaza has is enough to supply Gaza and the West Bank with, so I'm trying to remember how many people live in the West Bank. About I'm going to say 1 million, maybe a little bit above 1 million. Gaza's 2.2 million. The gas that's there will supply those needs for 15 years. Israel has gas reserves off its coast that could supply Israel's gas needs for 500 years. So Israel has a lot of gas, and I literally think that the stuff off of Gaza right now, unless they're hiding reports that I've not seen, but I saw this in many reports, 3 reports in articles from 2016 and 2017, that it's literally a drop in the bucket. So I just don't think Israel's going to do that. So I'm going to just take a quick look to see if I have any questions, and everybody says I don't have any questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do something that I very rarely do. I'm going to terminate this a little bit early. So again, please go like and subscribe and get notifications on Hope for Our Times YouTube channel, Also do that for Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube channel. Fellowship Bible Chapel is also on Rumble at Real FPC. And I think Rock Harbor Church also has a YouTube and Rumble channel. Although I think Pastor Brandon keeps getting knocked off of YouTube because he's a little bit more direct than I am. But anyway, thanks to Pastor Tom for the opportunity tonight. And I'm going to sign off and say, God bless you, and pray for Israel, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I don't think that, as we've talked about this, I don't think we're going to have anything of the sense that this is going to be walked back. We're in this until the Lord returns. So stand firm, as it says in the New Testament, stand firm in the faith and act like men. Be strong. And I appreciate it. Thanks you, and God bless. Talk to you later.